The original Dark Souls is now 14 years old. Feel old yet? Dark Souls! The game that triggered a giant snowball that unfolded into some of the best games in gaming history. The game that gave Miyazaki just the foundation he needed to build a genre most of us refer to as one, if not the best that gaming industry in general has to offer. And also the successor of Demon's Souls that convinced the players of the value that there is behind spending hours of your lifetime just to defeat a singular boss. We've had a ton of great games throughout all of the past years, but it has remained very rare to find one with as big of an impact to the various components of game design as that of Dark Souls and the Souls genre in general. So to celebrate 14 years of Dark Souls revolution in gaming, I want to dedicate today's video to the impact of Dark Souls and the development of the Souls genre. That being said, if you enjoy this video at any given time, feel free to give it a like down below or leave a comment to shove my video up in the algorithm. Let's go! We're in the year 2009 and From Software released Demon's Souls. A game that was seemingly doomed to fail if it wasn't for the Souls dad himself, Hidetaka Miyazaki. After taking a more or less unusual career route in changing his company rather than sticking with it for the rest of his life, he discovered a project From Software was working on, but unsure of its actual success or fail. Miyazaki, however, believed in its success, but changed the entire formula to his liking. The release came, and it sucked. Only 20,000 copies were sold. Sony was totally unsatisfied with the feedback and everything around it, the money they gained. The game was way too hard, people complained. So let's just say it took a while. But sooner or later, the gamers of Japan started acknowledging what Demon's Souls truly was, realizing the positively unfamiliar experience the game delivered. Demon's Souls' atmosphere is super weird and dark, the story is complicated and not tangible at all, the bosses are super tough. That's bad game design, right? To make it quick, the game sold about 100,000 copies. The experience of defeating an enemy that seemed near impossible to overcome, combined with the coolness of the mysterious setting, suddenly seemed almost like an enlightenment for all players. The game became such a big success that Miyazaki immediately went back to work, which led to today's birthday child, Dark Souls. Now, unlike Demon's Souls, Dark Souls didn't need any build-up time or anything. It released on PlayStation and on Xbox and was an immediate success, selling way more than 100,000 copies of Demon's Souls. Now, unlike Demon's Souls, Dark Souls didn't need any build-up time or anything. It released on PlayStation and Xbox and was an immediate success, selling way more than the 100,000 copies of Demon's Souls. And that was the moment where it suddenly all made sense for Miyazaki. Understanding that there is charm behind the frustration of difficult areas and enemies, as well as the satisfaction behind overcoming such, was just the recipe From Software needed.
Here one time!
And it still is the biggest selling point of any Soulsborne game ever. And it's actually pretty easy to understand why. See, the concept can easily be transferred to the function of the human brain, always striving to feel all kinds of emotions, especially joy and relief, as those are the ones that deliver the most endorphins, which are happiness hormones the brain can unleash. If a player now has to fight an enemy that is rather easy, the reward the brain unleashes for defeating that enemy is much weaker than when having to fight a strong enemy that takes multiple tries and an actual strategy to beat. It's just like coming home from a day of work or school, and then eating something. The harder and the longer your day was, the more rewarding the food feels. On the foundation of this philosophy, From Software gave us 2 sequels to the Dark Souls series, Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3. Though we can probably all agree that Dark Souls 2 wasn't nearly as good as 1, 3 on the other hand sold about 10 million copies and thus became the most successful From Software game of its time. Plus, there was Bloodborne, which was in development during the production of Dark Souls 2 and became a masterpiece far greater than Dark Souls 3 in many people's eyes, because they just doubled down on everything that made Souls titles great. For every game developer, this is absolute cinema. People love your game so much they start buying merch, sold copy numbers are skyrocketing with every game, and people buy no matter what you put up on the market, as long as it's Souls related. But nonetheless, Dark Souls 3 finished the series. Why? Why close something that is so big in a time where genres like theirs get milked and milked for millions of dollars? Well, because Miyazaki had another vision. Sekiro came following the path of hard bosses, but in a completely different playstyle. No rolling to dodge, no guarding behind a shield, just pure raw sword combat. Parrying, countering, slashing, reacting, timing. All of a sudden the Souls genre had expanded to a whole new, but just as great, if not even better horizon, to which the players responded with 2 million sold copies in the first 2 weeks after its release. And 3 years later, all knowledge of their past games, all great game mechanics, all legendary boss designs, all scenery work, just about everything was combined into From Software's greatest, most memorable masterpiece, Elden Ring, featuring the Souls Sword as an open-world RPG for the very first time. And that, to this day, was only beaten by itself in terms of quality, and by that I mean its own DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree. As we can see, Souls games have come a very long way, have evolved and stuck with the gaming community all the way till today as something very special. And at the same time, it has forged a new generation of gaming. Of course, other developers have recognized the immense success of Souls games by now, so they want to have some of that sweet money for themselves too, which is why in the last 2 to 3 years many companies started to pump out an immense wave of Souls-like games that are now all over the market, filling the barrel of Souls games to the brim. Now you might think that having as much of this revolutionary game idea as possible is a blessing, but it comes with a cost. Sadly, just like it is with everything that is consumed too frequently, people start to get tired of things, and since the gaming industry has come to a point where new Souls-like games are released every month, the game style starts to feel too repetitive and even boring.
There are too many Souls-like games. There are so many Souls, I bet even Shang Tsung would want to retire. Every week there is a new Souls-like game dropping or being announced. It is preposterous.
A more recent example for this probably is Wu Chang Fallen Feathers, which by any means is not a bad game, but it suffers rapidly from the overload of Souls games on the market. So you could say, though Miyazaki has opened doors to a new gaming age, it closed some at the same time due to its huge rate of success. Now what I want to see from the future of gaming is more creativity and individuality again. Souls games are fun, and I don't want that to be ruined for anyone, just as much as I want to experience different things outside of that genre. And I'm very happy that we are already seeing new unique games rise up on the market like Expedition 33. It is a game that, in my opinion, supports exactly what gaming needs and what it is all about: variety so everyone can find a game they enjoy. And with that thought, I'm going to end today's video. I hope I could give you a nice overview on the impact of Souls gaming, and all that's left for me to say now is happy 14th anniversary, Dark Souls. You deserve it. I wish everyone a great rest of your day. Bye bye.